Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, as COVID permeates throughout the country, the net is closing inside Australia, with nervous states and territories introducing new restrictions in a desperate bid to contain the spread. 3 states and a territory recording new COVID cases today, with one Premier warning things will get worse before they get better.
Another daily press conference, another grim reading.
New South Wales recorded 18 cases of community transmission.
The country's COVID epicentre recording less cases than yesterday, among them 2 primary school students, but the New South Wales Premier bears little optimism.
We also have to be prepared for the numbers to go up considerably.
The associated fear triggering swarms of testing queues and panic buying across Sydney. The Victorian government deploying hundreds of officers to patrol the New South Wales border and make sure no one from an exposure site is allowed in.
Anywhere, anytime, we can pop up, we can put up a booze bus interception site, we can put up random interception sites and checkpoints.
Darwin's snap lockdown extended until Friday after the discovery of another Delta strain case linked to a minor. 3 new positive detections in Queensland, and in Western Australia, health teams are on alert after a concerning new infection of fleeting contact in a gym.
It is a difficult situation every state faces.
And every state is clamping down in its own way. Venue caps and masks now mandatory in Perth and parts of Queensland, as well as new restrictions in the ACT and South Australia, despite no community transmission.
Given the nature of the rapid spread of the Delta virus, we have no alternative but to take action.
The only state or territory in Australia without similar restrictions is Tasmania. Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
The state government is being slammed for not adequately informing Tasmanians about the country's growing COVID crisis. No localised restrictions have been enforced at this stage, but people are being urged to keep testing and vaccination rates high.
As the mainland grapples with a rapidly spreading, escalating situation, the question on everyone's lips: when will Tasmania's COVID-free streak come to an end?
It just reminds us that Tassie has lots of natural protection, but things can change very quickly and we need to respect that.
3 Tasmanian FIFO workers who returned from an infected gold mine in the Northern Territory are being tested and remain in isolation, while North Melbourne football players who travelled to Hobart on Saturday are also isolating. Tasmania has closed off to parts of New South Wales, the Northern Territory, Queensland, Victoria and Western Australia, leaving only South Australia and the ACT fully open.
We won't hesitate to expand that list. We'll monitor the situation closely.
The state government says we're prepared for a potential second wave.
We know that if we were to see a case of coronavirus here in Tasmania, that we have escalation plans across our health facilities.
The last thing we need is COVID-19 or a pandemic to impact Tasmania, because we know we've got a health system that's in crisis.
But the government and public health are coming under fire for not providing enough information.
What Tasmanians expect is to see a strategy from the government that outlines how it will keep us safe, and it seems that we're, as we are at the moment, waiting for the government to tell us exactly what the plan here is.
No local restrictions have been imposed at this stage.
It's important when we're looking at these restrictions from interstate, the government will not hesitate to make further restrictions.
A Hobart doctor says it's not a question of if we'll get a positive case, but when.
Almost certainly. I think no matter what we do, we're not out of COVID until enough people get immune to it.
And it's not just businesses here being flooded with last-minute cancellations. Tourism providers across the ditch also hit hard by the outbreak, with the travel bubble paused.
Having really good bookings from Australia, from obviously with your school holidays and families coming over to enjoy our skiing, but unfortunately now we're seeing a lot of cancellations over the last couple of days.
The ban will be reviewed tomorrow, with tourism organisations hoping flights may restart with safe states like Tasmania. Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
And Westbury prison opponents have declared their fight is not over, despite test drilling beginning on the proposed site for the first time since the state election. The contentious $270 million facility on Birrelly Road is set to house 140 prisoners once fully built. But critics claim the area isn't suitable and will threaten native flora and fauna.
Everybody's starting to ask questions about what's going on. It's a long way from being over. They've still got to get their natural values assessment done in spring.
It's just mind-boggling that a government that should be working for the benefit of the people are doing this to this community.
The government maintains the prison won't disrupt the environment's sensitive natural values. National power prices would come down if a second Strait interconnector was built, according to a new independent analysis. But as the project slowly progresses, a big question mark remains over who will pay for it. The report out today recommending the cost of the $3.5 billion Marinus link be shared across all states.
The rules need to change so that Tasmanians only pay their fair share and no more. This is very important. We will fight to ensure that this occurs.
Well, financial investment decision is in 2023, and that's our next milestone.
The opposition says there has been too much focus on reports and not enough on the project's rollout. Self-employed Tasmanian journalist Kane Scott Dallow has been sentenced to 9 months jail after he made defamatory videos about State Government Minister Michael Ferguson. Dallow was found guilty of 4 charges of contempt of court over the online footage. Federal court documents also show he breached orders to not publish content when he uploaded a 3rd video. Justice O'Callaghan says all contempts were deliberate and serious, and Dallow offered no apology. Almost 2,000 tonnes of rock has now been removed from Paradise Gorge at Orford. New vision has been released, providing a 3D update of the removal work done so far. Plans are now underway to clear lower levels of the rock face, with long-term monitoring systems to be installed. The state government says the Tasman Highway is still on track to reopen by mid-July. 16 GP trainees have honed their emergency response skills, taking part in a medical workshop in Launceston. The group given a range of real-life scenarios, including dealing with mental health patients, burns victims and babies.
It's not common to see these types of emergencies in general practice, but it's really important that we're nimble and able to respond. For some of us, we do work out in rural practices, so if we do need extra help, it might take time to get us, so we've got to be prepared.
GP registrars are required to take part in around 10 compulsory training days like this during the year. Tasmania's peak hospitality body says a critical shortage of workers is forcing venues to close their doors several days a week. The state government is hoping a new training facility will help ease the pressure and keep struggling businesses alive.
The minister served up a masterclass in pouring the perfect latte.
I'm not very good at coffee.
Just one of the skills taught here at the new Drysdale Centre, the TAFE facility co-located at Claremont College.
We've been doing espresso and non-alcoholic beverages and interacting with customers, and it's been pretty full on, but it's a really good experience.
With more courses to be introduced in the coming years.
So where you see tables and chairs at the moment for housekeeping, they will all go in and beds will come out. So the opportunity to use this facility as a multi-purpose facility is very much there as well.
It's hoped the facility will help ease the pressure on an industry struggling with a critical shortage of workers.
It's really hard on business, this skill shortage. Venues are having to close for an extra day or 2 a week to try and give staff some relief. Our staff are working extra long hours, which is having impacts on mental health.
We're working closely with TAFE and industry to identify where there are skill shortages. Clearly across tourism and hospitality there is need, which is why we're responding with facilities like this.
With just over half of the $2 million commitment spent on the new training centre, plans are already underway for an expansion. And for these students, the sky is the limit.
I really want to travel, and it's a really great industry to have opportunities everywhere.
Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
Swimmers have been warned against entering the water at a popular Hobart beach with bacteria posing a health risk. As part of the Derwent Estuary Programme's annual report, Howrah Beach has been downgraded to a poor rating. Investigations have now ramped up to find the source of the contamination, with warning signs installed today. Water quality also declined at 2 other Howrah sites and at Taroona.
It's disappointing that water quality has been impacted. There's a numerous large amounts of infrastructure that do need upgrading, when we do identify issues, we are very quick to fix them.
Our entire community can do something about looking after our waterways. So whether it's picking up after your dog, washing your car at a car wash or on the grass, to prevent some of that pollution actually entering the stormwater system in the first place.
But in good news, the water at Windermere Beach in Glenorchy improved for the first time in several years. The story of one of Tasmania's most influential families has been published, bringing nearly 200 years of history into the light. Hollymans of Bass Strait covers the family's rise from penniless convicts to owners of shipping and trucking operations, along with the foundation of the country's first major airline, Australian National Airways. The first century of the company's history had been written in the 50s, but was never published as it was considered too expensive at the time. Author Julian Burgess compiled the remainder of the Hollymans story, covering its extensive list of business interests.
Even refrigerators. In 1944, the Tasmanian fish canneries that were based down in Charles Street in Launceston produced 2 million cans of canned fish for the troops, Australian and Allied troops in the Pacific War. I thought, wow, that happened in Launceston. There's not a trace of that factory in Launceston now.
We had a grandson, 15-year-old grandson at our house the other night who was looking at the book and said, I didn't realise you were involved in the airline business.
The Hollyman family also invested heavily in the Guns timber mills.
The Tassie Devils have jumped to 6th on the NAB League ladder after dismantling Dandenong at UTAS Stadium. Joe Menzies booted 3 for the home side, while Bain and Lowe was best on ground. The Devils won 83-56. We'll check the Crips TSL Player of the Year votes now after round 13. Brad Cox-Goodger hasn't lost any form with 3 goals and 3 votes from Saturday's win over Kingborough. Harrison Gunther's return from the VFL is paying off, best of field for Glenorchy. And Jay Blackberry has another best on ground to his name after the Blues beat Clarence. North Launceston's Jay Fearn remains on top with 18 votes. Blackberry is on 17, Jake Hines is on 14, while Dylan Riley and Cox-Goodger are locked on 9. Tasmanian soccer has a new champion after Nathaniel Atkinson's best on ground performance for Melbourne City in last night's A-League final. He's become an idol at Junior Club Riverside, where he keeps an eye on the club's up-and-coming talent when he's home in the state.
Threading the needle and tying up a great comeback story.
Looking to hit straight back! Top corner! If you don't mind! The boy from Tasmania! Set for an Ollie Roos call-up!
The Super Strike equalled the game and later handed Tasmania its first Joe Marston medalist for best of field in the final. What vindication for Atkinson, who put everything on the line as a teenager, heading to Melbourne City's academy to pursue his dream.
There was no doubt that he was technically gifted, but the difference was his work ethic and his commitment to professionalism from a young age.
His roots are at Riverside Olympic and he hasn't forgotten them.
My old club Riverside have a bit of a function going on, so they're supporting me back home, and my mum finally made it over to watch me.
People like Nathaniel Atkinson, who will just come back to the club, come and watch a junior game, have his photo taken with him, very unassuming, just shows that if you can put in that level of hard work and dedication, you can certainly make it on the world stage.
Last night's heroics are even more remarkable, given Atkinson's season had been written off 2 months ago when he went down injured. An Olympics debut with the Ollie Roos is now very much on the horizon. Although Football Tasmania acknowledges the fact Atkinson had to move to Melbourne to develop is a gap in its pathway program.
If we have our own A-League, W-League opportunities locally, then and the pathway opportunities that come with those, then that's not as necessary in the future, hopefully.
What will make life easier for the state's juniors until then is a new business-backed fundraising program to help families afford to send their children to national competitions, something which can cost thousands of dollars for each player.
Any contributions will just come off the total costs and therefore everyone will benefit.
On the field, Olympia's Josie Mamek played her first game in 2 years after injuring her ACL, forming part of a 2-0 win over South Hobart. There's no denying the difference when it comes to match fitness. Mamek had a gentle half hour of game time.
Easing back into it, 30 minutes was actually a long time. I was dying after the 30 minutes, so we'll probably stick to that for a while.
While Kingborough fought back from 2 goals down to draw 3-3 with South. Ironing out skill errors is priority number 1 for the Lions.
Generally, when we've conceded, we have felt like we've been on top at the time. And yeah, it's just happened to be there's been 1 or 2 errors that have crept in and, you know, the other team's managed to just capitalise.
COVID restrictions permitting, 21 local riders will head to northwest Victoria this week for the Hatter Desert Race. 4 senior riders, including Kyron Bacon and Jonty Reinders, will be leading the charge along with 17 juniors. The all-dirt racing can see riders on the bike for up to 4 hours at a time. Stuart McSwain's movie debut is approaching, with the trailer for The Last Milestone being released. The film chronicles Kenyan Eliud Kipchoge becoming the first person to run a marathon in under 2 hours. McSwain was a pacer during the history-making attempt, and the film will be released in August.
Good evening. A colder than average night last night. Lyawini down to -6. Our top today was 15 at Friendly Beaches. Hobart and Burnie 14. Launceston and Devonport tops of 12. Bushy Park, St Helens, Wynyard and King Island 14. Grove and Strawn 13. Flinders Island and Low Head 12. We did have some low-level cloud over the west today, a little over the northeast, but mostly clear for Tasmania. On the bigger picture, a frontal cloud band lies over eastern WA with a more distinctive front to the west of that. The high moves east of Tasmania tomorrow, holding a ridge over central and eastern parts of the nation. Winds from a northerly aspect as that high drifts off, up to 10 to 15 knots, but to 20 to 30 knots down the west coast. So we have a strong wind warning there for waters between Low Rocky Point and Sandy Cape. Hobart, a sunny day tomorrow, top of 12, 11 the high for Adventure Bay. Tarraleah, a morning frost, a cold start, 11 the top later. 13 for Launceston after early fog. 13 the high for Devonport with a shower or two, and partly cloudy for Bridport, 14 the maximum. Burnie, a shower or two, and 13. 14 the top for Strawn and Marrawar, both partly cloudy, and 14 the high for St Helens, a sunny day in the east. Swansea 14 as well, and 15 for Whitemark. On Wednesday, sunny over the east and south, but showers developing over the northwest and creeping over the north. On Thursday, partly cloudy for Swansea and Hobart, but showers again over the north and west. And on Friday, showers statewide with hail possible over the west and north. And further north, showers in Perth tomorrow clearing, fine over Adelaide, a foggy start to the day in Melbourne, a frosty start to the day in Canberra, and showers for Sydney and Brisbane. Clear in Hobart, it's 7 right now. Launceston 7 as well, mostly clear in Devonport and currently 6 degrees. That's all I've got for you, Kim. Bit dusty tonight. Must be the celebratory cordials I might have had last night.
Nothing to do with the state of origin, I'm sure. Thank you, Murph.